Hello everybody, Clayton here at etrailer.com. Today we'll be taking a look at, and I'll show you how to install, etrailer's tabless base plate kit on our 2014 Honda CRV. Our base plate is one of the key components in our flat towing setup. Those key components consist of our base plate, of course, our tow bar, our safety cables, our supplemental braking system, our diode wiring, our fuse bypass, and our brake light relay. In our specific application, we do need a high-low adapter. This is going to keep that tow bar within 3 inches tilt of our RV. Now we want that tow bar within 3 inches because it keeps our towed vehicle from kind of chucking and bouncing. It helps it track well behind our RV, making our ride a lot more comfortable, and it creates less wear and tear on our vehicle. Now our base plate is that key connection point between our tow bar and our vehicle. This mounts right up to our vehicle's frame, so it's a very solid connection. And then in our case, it looks really nice on the front of our CRV. And when we're ready to disconnect, we can pull our pins out here. We'll turn our arm 90 degrees and simply pull it out. We'll repeat that same process on the other side. A nice feature of our kit is that it includes the hardware to adapt our connectors to any brand of tow bar you might have. That way you don't have to buy a new tow bar just to work with your base plate. With our tow bar disconnected, this is what our base plate is going to look like whenever we're driving it every day. As you can see, it looks pretty nice. It doesn't stick out on the front of our vehicle. It kind of blends in with that front fascia. Our base plate is going to be a steel construction. Has a nice black powder coat finish to resist rust and corrosion pretty well over time. Our kit does come with all the hardware needed to get our base plate mounted. It also includes a wiring bracket to mount our 7-pole wiring. And one really nice feature is we didn't have to do any trimming on our fascia for this particular model. When we're going to hook up, a good tip is to keep this hole facing upwards. We're going to simply slide our tab into our base plate and give it that 90-degree turn. Then we can grab our safety pins and get them locked in. It'll be the same process on both sides. In terms of installation, getting our base plate installed really isn't that bad. We just have to remove our fascia, trim some air ducting, and mount our base plate up to our frame and drill a few holes. Now that we've gone over some of the features, I've showed you a little bit about installation. We'll go ahead and show you how we got ours installed. To start our installation, we're going to have 3 push pins and 1 Phillips head screw and our wheel well that we need to remove. We're going to grab a trim panel tool and pop these out. With this removed, we'll repeat the same process on our passenger side. We're now going to have 6 push pin fasteners on the underside we can go ahead and remove. I'm going to grab that trim panel tool, pry down, and get these out of here. We'll repeat that same process for the rest of our push pins. With our push pins removed, there's going to be 2 10mm bolts. One located on the driver's side and one on the passenger side. We'll go ahead and get that removed. Now we're ready to come back to our wheel well. We're just going to pull out on our fascia a little bit and pull this wheel well liner out. Once we get enough room there, we'll pull out on this flare here. You want to make sure not to pull too hard and break those plastic tabs. And if you can reach on the inside and pop them, that's an easier way to do it. So we'll reach behind here, push in on the yellow tabs, and then pull out. And with this out of the way, we'll go ahead and take out this Phillips screw. Now we'll go ahead and repeat this process on the other side. Next, we're going to have 4 push pin fasteners located on the top of our fascia here. We'll go ahead and grab a small flat blade screwdriver, kind of pry this up. And we'll repeat the same process for all of our fasteners, and then we'll come back with our trim panel tool and remove it. We want to grab an extra set of hands to help get our fascia off. On the corners here, we're going to push up and kind of pull out, releasing these tabs. And then we're just going to go around the fascia, around the bumper, kind of pull our tabs out. There's going to be yellow tabs up here. We kind of have to pull straight out on our grill like so. It'll come out of that tab. There's going to be a few more behind our grill here, and we're going to reach behind with some needle nose pliers and compress those clips. After we get those top yellow pins compressed, we can give a good tug on the bottom, and these tabs will just release down here. With our grill removed, we now need to push down on these yellow tabs with a flat blade screwdriver, and then pull out on our fascia. Now we can set our fascia off to the side. Now we need to go ahead and remove our horn. We're going to use a 12mm socket. Get that removed. And just set our horn down here and let it hang by the wire. Now we can go ahead and trim away our air dam. We're going to be trimming away our air deflector right here. We're going to follow this line right on the bottom of our radiator. I am going to pop the top out. That'll give us a little bit more room to cut with our pair of snips. So we'll grab our trim panel tool, pry it down right here. Now I'll be able to get our snips in and cut right down this line. With that cut out, our bottom will just pull off. Now we're over on our driver's side. We're just going to trim out this little square here in our air deflector. Again, I'm going to use those pair of snips, follow this line up, and cut over. Our next step is going to remove this tiny corner of metal right here by this bolt. That's just going to give us enough clearance to get our base plate in. I went ahead and marked it. We're going to do the exact same thing on both sides. I'm going to grab a Dremel tool and cut that out. And when we're cutting the other side, we want to be really careful not to damage our AC line. So I suggest getting your Dremel tool in here first and then turning it on. That way you're not bouncing around. Now with an extra set of hands, we can go ahead and lift our base plate into place. On the passenger side, you are going to have to go under that AC line, so be careful. And then there's going to be a hole back here. We're going to get that lined up and slide our hardware through. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Right here is that AC line I was talking about. You can move it a little bit, but you want to make sure you're not putting any kinks in it or cracking it. Now we can grab our nut plate. We want to add some blue thread locker to the threads on the inside. There's going to be a hole in our frame here. We'll slide our nut plate in and then get it started into the nut plate with our hardware. Now we can repeat that same process on the other side. Now we can grab a 14mm socket and tighten these down the rest of the way. Now we need to go ahead and take off the hookup for our base plates. We're going to use a 19mm socket and wrench. And we'll repeat this for all of the hardware on both sides. It can be kind of hard to get that wrench in here, but if you turn the bolt on the other side, you should get it just enough clearance to get it on there. And take this out and set it to the side. Now with our base plate connection removed, we're going to grab a 3/8 drill bit, come up through the hole here, and drill straight into our bumper beam. It's a good idea to grab the 3/8 and mark your hole, and then we can come back with a smaller drill bit and drill a pilot hole. Now with our hole drilled out, we can repeat that same process on our passenger side. We can now grab our long nut plate, and we're going to add blue thread locker. Make sure to get enough in there. Then we'll grab our 3/8 by 1¼ bolt. We're going to take our nut plate, slide it into our bumper beam. Then we're going to look through the hole in the bottom and try to line that up. Right there is about perfect. Then we can take our bolt, we can then feed our bolt up through the bottom, then get it started on our nut plate. We get it hand tight, then we'll come back with a 14mm wrench and tighten it down. It is kind of tight, so you will have to use a wrench just to get it in here. We're now ready to drill out our 2 holes here. We're going to grab a 3/8 drill bit and kind of get it started to make our mark, and then we'll come back and drill a pilot hole. Now I'll grab a smaller bit, we'll get our pilot hole started. We now have our holes drilled out, and we'll repeat that same process over on our passenger side. We're now going to grab our 3/8 by 1¼ bolts, add blue thread locker. We're now going to slide our bolt through our base plate, add our lock washer and our hex nut on the back side. It is kind of a tight place to work, but if you just do it one step at a time, you'll be able to get it with no problem. With that bolt started, we'll get it hand tight. We'll repeat that exact same process for our remaining hardware. With all of our hardware hand tight, we can now grab a 14mm socket and wrench and tighten it down the rest of the way. With that and tightened down, we'll repeat that same process for our remaining hardware. We're now ready to torque everything down. All of our torque specs will be listed in our instructions. We'll go ahead and repeat that process for all of our remaining hardware. We're now ready to reinstall our connection block. We'll slide that through, grab our pins, push them in from the inside. We'll add our lock nuts on the outside. We'll do this for both sides and then come back and tighten them down. We don't have to tighten this down all that much. We just want to get it back to where it was when we took it off. With all of our hardware torqued down, we're now ready to mount our safety cables. We're going to take our top loop, come in from the bottom of our base plate, up around this way. We'll grab our D-link, drop it in here, and then hook it to itself. Tighten it down, pull out as much slack as we can. And it's important to make sure you're not pinching any of the lines or wiring underneath. Now we're going to take this end, bring it back through our base plate, grab our other D-link, and hook it to itself. Grab an 11/16 and tighten it down. We're going to repeat this same exact process on the other side. Again, make sure not to hit any wiring or hoses. With all of our safety cables attached, we're now ready to reinstall our horn. We're going to be reinstalling that same 12mm bolt. We have our base plate fully installed. I am going to leave our fascia off just because it's going to be a lot easier to run our braking system and our wiring. We can get everything mounted up, and then we'll reinstall our front fascia in the reverse order that we took it apart. With all of our other flat toe components, we're ready to lift up our fascia. We're going to go ahead, we already snapped in all of our tabs to get that fascia mostly on there. You're going to do this in reverse order that we took it apart. And as you can see, we didn't have to do any trimming, so that really makes it really easy to put our fascia back on. We just want to reinstall all of our push pins in the reverse order that we took them apart. We'll add this last Phillips screw. We have a couple more push pins to button up on the bottom. We have one 10mm bolt that goes right here. We'll get that started. Then there's 4 more push pins to put back here. Then our fascia is reinstalled. Now that we've got it installed, that's going to do it for the installation of the etrailer base plate kit on our 2014 Honda CRV.